What's up, everybody? My name is Josh Riel, and I'm here with the man, the myth, the Mark Millar. What's up, Mark?
Things are good. I'm in America. It's amazing.
Yeah, great. Thanks for coming. Glad you made a stop by the office. Come talk to us.
I'm only allowed in America for 48 hours at any one time. So, like the police, it's the thing with the police.
Oh,
wow. And I have to leave in an hour, but I wanted to see you guys before I go.
Okay, yeah, I appreciate it. Wow. Okay, so you're packing as much awesome stuff you can in while you're here.
Yeah,
okay, very cool. So we're going to talk to you first about your comic books, Jupiter's Legacy and Circle and Chrononauts. And at the end, we're going to try and get some movie stuff out of you.
Okay.
But yeah, so let's start with Jupiter's Legacy, which, and forgive me, or Circle, I should say, which is, when this video is going live, will be out, the trade is coming out.
Yes, that's right, in October.
You know, the story, you know, forgive me for messing with this, I probably won't tell it as masterfully as you and Frank did in the comic, but it's, you know, these people get superpowers, and then they come back and become like the idealistic superheroes, but then we see their children become a little disenfranchised. That was Jupiter's Legacy. And now you have Jupiter's Circle, which goes back to that golden age of superheroes when they just got their powers and were sort of... But what I find interesting, I guess, about it is that it is supposed to be the golden age of superheroes, but they're like smoking and they're drinking, cheating on their wives and stuff. So what was it like for you to do that juxtaposition of those two tones?
Really fun. I mean, the very simple setup of Jupiter's Legacy is what it would be like to be the children of Superman and Wonder Woman, which would be really impossible. You know, like, they're so good looking and they're so cool and they're perfect in every way, you know. Everybody loves them. So to be the kid of them, it's kind of like those Hollywood kids, isn't it? Like, you know, that you don't quite live up to the amazing parents. And so they're just doing things like they're opening malls and making money, endorsements and all that kind of stuff. And it's, you know, it's set as a contemporary thing, you know. And what I wanted to do was do a story about their parents when they were that age, because we do tend to idealise our parents, and that's what Jupiter's Circle's about, is the fact that they were young ones too. And we always think of our parents weren't like us, but they were exactly like us because they were young at one time too. So I wanted to show what it would be like, you know, to have this public persona, you know, that everybody thinks is awesome and that your kids feel they can never live up to. But they really made all the same mistakes that everybody else does too. And it's quite interesting with superheroes. I've always wanted to do a story like that, like what happens between the adventures. Like, if you think about it like a Saturday morning Justice League cartoon or something, this is essentially what happens Monday to Friday. And it's them doing the washing up, and it's them just living normal lives and taking the kids to school, relationships starting to flounder and everything. So it's quite weird. It feels like a European version of a superhero story, you know, but I've had such a ball doing it. I loved it.
And you know, Frank did the art for, Frank Quietly did the art for Jupiter's Legacy, and you switched artists for Jupiter's Circle, and that was Wilfredo Torres, and then you had, was it David?
David Gianfelice,
I'm not even going to try and say that one. But they have a very much more like classic look, but again, there's these like awful like things happening that they're doing. So was that on purpose? Did you want the art to change to reflect the era?
Kind of. I mean, what really happens is that Frank's so slow. I mean, he's a genius, right? And the reason it looks so good is because he's so slow. But he'd fallen behind, and we wanted to sort of have something that would happen between book 1 and book 2, which we were stockpiling. So we took a year out to do something else while he got ahead in all of his deadlines. And I really wanted to do this story, you know, like the story that was set in the past. And it would feel too weird to have something that aped Frank's style, so I went for something that was more classically 1950s looking. And Wilfredo's stuff in particular, it looks like an episode of Mad Men. It's just beautiful. It's really sumptuous and really simple colours and everything. So it's very much its own book. It's its own identity. But I'd had this idea, you know, and I had these stories, which I loved, but I never thought I would ever write them. And to give you a weird bit of background on it, is Jupiter's Legacy, before I started writing it, what I did is I worked out the backstory for like 100 characters, and I worked out what their parents were like and who hated each other and who got on and everything. And I had it as yellow post-it notes all over my office for 2 months. That's all I did. I just sat and worked out all the backstories. It was like a mad guy, you know. And then my agent said to me, look, if you're going to have this year where you're stockpiling Jupiter's Legacy, why don't you tell that Jupiter's Circle story? And I was like, you know what, yeah, it shouldn't just be in my head, you know, I'll write it down. And it's a story I've loved telling. I actually have enjoyed it more than writing Jupiter's Legacy. I think it's been great, really fun.
And you know, you're kind of known for having a movie deal with the comic book, but there hasn't been anything for Jupiter's yet.
No, we're working on the film.
Okay. Well, do you have an update on where that's at right now?
I know who the director hasn't been publicly announced, but the producer is Lorenzo de Bonaventura, who used to run Warner Brothers. He's the guy who brought in Christopher Nolan to do Batman. He bought the rights to Harry Potter, and then he went off and became a producer and did the Transformers movies and everything. So he's a legend, you know. So
I feel like a smart guy.
And he's a lovely guy as well. I mean, the first time I met him, we had a 1 hour meeting that became a 4 hour drinking session. impression. It was amazing. You know? I thought I want to work with this guy for the rest of my life.
Is that the meetings you've been doing?
Yes, it's Alcoholics Anonymous meetings where they're still alcoholics. You know? But like we just hit it off, and I knew I wanted a big beast for this, you know, because a trilogy of movies like this, it couldn't be done as one movie. It had to be like a Lord of the Rings kind of trilogy. I wanted to do a superhero epic, you know, something that people always remembered, you know. And I didn't want it to go to somebody who was going to mess it up or do an underwhelming version of it or anything. So Lorenzo had this really ambitious plan, got a director that everybody's been after. He's an amazing director, and we've got a screenwriter working on it just now, you know, so it's very exciting.
Well, because the way you're doing in the comics, you have Legacy and Circle. Will it be just a straight narrative like Legacy?
Yeah, just Legacy.
Or would it? Okay, so it wouldn't have any flashbacks or anything from
I don't
Circle?
think so. I mean, there'll be elements of it probably, but no more than the Star Wars films. You know, what I'd kind of like it to be is like, this is episodes 4, 5, and 6.
Gotcha.
You know, it's the stuff set on a very specific timeline, and then we can do the disappointing prequel in the future. You know,
afterwards.
Yeah. And that's what I get into hiding.
Okay,
you know,
cool. So let's talk about Chrononauts, which you're doing with Sean Gordon Murphy.
Yeah.
And that's already out in trade and everything.
Out last month, yeah.
And you know what I really loved about Chrononauts is it's this time travel story.
Yeah.
In most time travel stories, they are really cautious and they like don't want to mess anything up because of the butterfly effect. Like you step on something you shouldn't, and it changes the course of history. But they're just going in and they're like dating all these women from across the era, starting an army, get to take all the coolest like cars and toys and stuff, and they don't even care. So did you like purposely want to like cut loose into a fun time travel story?
Well, I think I just wanted to do something fun in general, you know, and there's nothing like time travel actually for fun, because you can go anywhere. You know, you can. It's fantastic. The scope of it is limited by your imagination. Just I thought this would be awesome. If I want to do a scene in ancient Rome, I can do it. If I want to do 65 million years ago, I can do that, or for the far future. So it's a great canvas to work on, you know. And I just thought it's kind of boring to sort of follow the rules, and it is weird that time travel stories they feel they have to, when no other type of story feels that they have to follow it, you know. And anything we do right now affects the future, but we don't care, you know.
Yeah.
So we just, you know, so like, I mean, whatever we do next affects, you know, everything that's coming up, you know. But let's just live a little, and that's their attitude, you know.
Was any part of it? Because there are some very specific things, and there's especially that board with like all these famous women they're dating and stuff, and like these cool cars and
Sean actually put his wife on that board as well.
Did he really?
Yeah,
Okay.
so
I'll have to go back and look at that. So was that any like wish fulfillment for you? Were there any things personally that you loved about from history that, or like icons or people that you purposely wanted to have these characters like Corbin go out and experience?
Yeah, there was fun stuff, like things like the Smiths concert. You know, I thought it'd be quite cool to have like the Salford Smiths concert from the 1980s, which Johnny Marr and Morrissey said was like the best gig they ever did. So I liked the idea of them joining the Smiths and having pretended that they came up with the songs, because they knew the words to all the songs and everything, and they came in and joined the band, or they made up Breaking Bad and they made up Harry Potter and all that kind of thing like that. And that's the kind of thing like I remember as a kid sort of thinking, if I could go back in time, I'd love to write Watchmen or something, you know, sort of sneak it out before Alan Moore. And it is the sort of small petty sort of stuff that you really would do. The best time travel thing I heard actually was my brother. Like, he read Chrononauts and we got chatting about time travel, and he said to me, you know what I would do if I could go back in time and meet somebody? I was like, what? He said, I'd go back and meet myself. And I was like, what, like as a kid? And he went, no, like a month ago. And I was like, why? And he said, it'd be really interesting to just hang out with yourself for a day, see what you're like. And I was like, that's the most narcissistic thing I've ever heard in my life, you know? You could meet Gandhi or Jesus or something, but you meet yourself a month ago and hang out, you know?
Interesting part of it was that it really did have a, we were talking about this earlier before we started rolling, but it's such a very sentimental, positive spin to it. So, and normally a lot of your comics have been like very sort of like dark and more grim. So was this like a change for you to want to do more positive comics?
Yeah, it's all cyclical though. I mean, when I first broke in the late 90s, I was doing Superman Adventures. I was doing the animated Superman thing, which is aimed at 4 to 7 year olds, you know? So, I mean, and I loved it. I had a great time doing it. So I enjoy both, you know, and I just feel the noughties was a kind of period when people loved dark comedy. They loved Batman even, was so grim, you know, like it looked like David Fincher was directing Batman, you know, and that period's just over, and I think it's just people want to have a little fun, and this decade I think is more upbeat, more heroic and everything, and I loved writing that too. Great.
Cool. So yeah. I was going to ask you some questions about your movie projects, but I suppose the first one to ask you is Chrononauts.
Yeah.
Do you have an update to where that is at right now?
I think it's just been written, you know, like I was out here, that's one of the reasons I'm here. I mean, I'm in LA for 2 days, and I did 8 meetings or whatever, and checked in on each of the projects and see how everything was doing. You have to kind of show up and show that you're a real person and everything, because everybody else lives in Hollywood. So I'm out in Scotland, you know, and I just come in once a year and show my face and then disappear again, you know. But like Chrononauts is one of the ones we were chatting about, and it looks great. I mean, we've got one of the actors signed up already, one of the two leads. The other one we're out to. Hopefully we'll get him too. We're talking about directors and, you know, screenplays just getting started, so it's quite exciting. So hopefully, all going well, late 2017 or something. Hopefully we'll get that.
Cool. I'm gonna hold you to it.
Yeah.
We've also, you know, like Wanted was so long ago.
Yeah.
We also you've had 2 Kick-Ass movies. Are we going to get any more sequels, prequels, threequels to any of those?
I'm a great believer in the market. You know, I think if people want it, they go and see it, and Kick-Ass 2 just didn't make enough money. You know, it made a profit. I mean, you forget how cheap these movies are. You know, like Avengers and things like that, or Captain America, they cost $300 million plus, you know, really. But we made that for $24 million, like Kick-Ass 2, and it made $60 million, and then did the same again on DVD, roughly. And but it's not enough, really, to justify a sequel. If it made $100 million, the way the first one did, we'd have done a sequel. But like, Matthew's quite keen to do something. Matthew and I talk every day, and one of the things he was thinking about was doing maybe a Hit Girl prequel movie.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure, because like I'm not a massive fan of prequels. Like I of all the prequels I've ever seen, I can't really think of any that I've been into, because I think subconsciously, you know, the characters are going to be okay because you see them in the next film, you know? So you know nobody's going to die. Yeah. Anybody who's in the thing is safe. And even if you don't think about it, your subconscious, I think, does. And I had this argument with Matthew about it, and I was saying, like, yeah, I don't know, I'm not sure about a sequel. I said, tell me one good sequel. There's never been a good sequel, a prequel. And he said to me, X-Men First Class. And I forgot he'd directed it. You know, so but that's true, it was a good movie. You know?
Yeah, that one, very good. Also, you know, Kingsmen: The Secret Service, that was great. Like,
yeah, it was great
surprise hit for everybody. So, you know, congratulations on that one. And now their sequel is in the works. And I've heard you say that you guys somehow want to work Colin Firth back in. And spoiler for those who haven't seen it, but
spoil away. They should have seen the film by now.
He should have seen it. He doesn't make it to the end of the movie. So how would you work Colin Firth into a sequel to the Kingsmen?
Well, that's the conversations everyone's having right now. You know, because, you know, part of what made that movie work is Colin. I mean, Colin's fantastic. It was a two-hander, that film. But you also want to save the integrity of the story. So if you are bringing him back, it has to make sense. You know, so that's where it is at the moment. You know, bits of the story have been done. Matthew and Jane are working on it at the moment. Bits have been done. Some things have still to be worked out. Some decisions have still to be made and everything. So it's all fairly amorphous, but all going well. We're hoping to be shooting in Easter. You know. Okay.
So you don't know if it's gonna be like a flashback, or he would be like a zombie.
It's funny. There was a lot of conversations like this. You know, like we were saying, should we have an evil brother? Colin's, you know, with a moustache.
Yeah.
So, or is he a ghost or whatever? You know, just whatever. You know, so like I don't know. The guys have a plan, and you know, I can't spoil it just now, because I think the final decision really is still to be made too. You know, so
cool.
But it'll be good. I mean, Vaughn's funny. Like, I mean, he's done Layer Cake, Stardust, Kick-Ass, X-Men First Class, and Kingsman. And even Spielberg had made 1941 by his third movie, you know, so I trust him. You know, he's done 5 good movies. You know?
Yeah, very cool. Also, you are a creative consultant. Is that the title for Fox's Marvel movies?
For 4 years, yeah. I mean, I signed up in August 2012, and it runs out August 2016. But it's really just, you just have a chat. It's really easy. All I do is a Skype or do phone calls or sit in an office and chat with the execs. Like, you know, what movie would be good, what character would work in his own movie, who should be in this movie, who should be bringing as a guest star, that kind of thing. It's just fun. It's the kind of stuff I do with my pals, except Fox pay me for it.
I love it. That's really cool to hear. So are you, do you have any examples of any movies that have already come out where you can point and say, like, oh, I thought of that thing, that plot twist, or that character?
Quicksilver and Days of Future Past. That was Juggernaut originally. Okay. Juggernaut was busting through the building, and Bryan Singer and I were on the phone, and I was saying, put Quicksilver there, you know, that could be a good moment to do it. And I was telling him about the super speed book that I was doing called MPH, available for $12.99. But like, and it was a kind of new way of looking at super speed, and we were chatting about that. And Bryan nailed it. It was so amazing. I mean, that scene's like 120 seconds long, and it was probably the best scene in any movie that year. Yeah. You know, everything cool about super speed was done in 2 minutes. It was incredible. it was such a great moment in that film. But Yes, just little things like that. You'll have a chat, and I mean sometimes they'll ignore you as well. You'll say like, I'd an idea for an end sequence in something, and people sort of think about it and they go another way. But film's so unlike comics, it's like really incredibly collaborative. There's 300 people working in a film, whereas a comic it's almost like prose. It's just you and one other person. Which I love about it as well, because it's quite autonomous, and if it works, it's you. It's down to you, and if it fails, it's your fault. Which is cool.
Cool. That's interesting to know. The most recent Fox Marvel movie to come out was Fantastic Four, which was adapted from the Ultimate Fantastic Four. It was
really,
inspired by elements of it. I saw there.
Only the teleportation bit. That was probably the only thing. But I think it took little bits from lots of different things.
And so, what's your reaction to how that performed?
Do you know, it's a shame because I think elements of it were good. Some bits of it were good. I remember the first half in particular, I think works well. And Josh is brilliant. Chronicle was my favourite superhero movie of 2012, and bear in mind Avengers was out that year. I really love Chronicle. So it's just a shame. I mean, just sometimes things don't work out as planned, but nobody goes in hoping it's not going to work out. Everybody's trying their best, and those guys worked their asses off, but it didn't quite come together as well as they hoped, which is a shame.
Do you see a future for that franchise? And there's been talk of a crossover with the X-Men. Do you think that's a save for the franchise?
I think everything's open to discussion. These things are, no decision I think has really been made on anything yet like that. These are sort of chats. Everybody's going to have a guest on the phone at some point. But the Marvel brand's such a powerful brand. Marvel, it doesn't always work out great. Thor 2 didn't work out especially well, or whatever. Or Iron Man 2 didn't work. But then Iron Man 3 comes along and it's great. So I mean, these things can be uneven sometimes. Avengers 2 was nowhere near as good as Avengers 1. But there's been 45 superhero movies or something over the last 15 years, and they can't all work out fantastically, But still, I'd say the hit rate has actually worked out terrifically compared to most genres. I actually think comic book movies overall, still score incredibly high. They're all not only in profit, but really quite substantially in profit. And I don't think you can say that for crime movies, romance movies, or comedies, any other genre. The hit rate is enormous in comics, which is why Hollywood loves it so much.
Yeah, it's been doing so well. Spielberg said recently that they're going to go the way of the Western, which Westerns did enjoy a really long period of success, and then eventually went away. So do you feel like that he's right?
The human race will go the way of the Western at some point. I mean, everything has to end at some point. We're just going to be atoms. We're just going to be atoms. But it's inevitable, I mean, but I think it's got at least another good 5 years in it. I think the stuff that's coming up is so strong. I mean, there's no way Avengers 3 and Avengers 4 isn't going to make a ton of money. These are billion-dollar grossers, multi-billion-dollar grossers. Batman and Superman, just the fact those two icons are coming together, that's a billion-dollar movie, So I mean, all the stuff that's coming up, there'll be flops, but there'll be super strong ones. Guardians 2 is going to be amazing. I can't wait for it, So, but I don't know. I mean, I think a lot of filmmakers have also been sort of waiting for this to end too, because they hate it. Film. I mean, I love superhero movies, but I know loads of people who hate them. There was an actress back in the UK, who said last week that if she has to watch another Spider-Man movie, she's going to hang herself.
From a web.
And they are aimed at a specific audience. I'm just lucky that audience is me, because I love it. It's brilliant.
Yeah, it's a golden age.
Oh, it's amazing. Honestly, try growing. I say to any kids now, anybody who's 14 or something, when I was 14, you had movies like Mannequin and all that. It was crap, right? It was really awful. Growing up in the 80s, people think it was all Ghostbusters and Back to the Future, but those were one good film every 2 years. Most of it was rubbish, Yeah. And if they did try a comic book movie, it was Superman 4 Quest for Peace or something like that, So it's amazing. We're in a great time right now. I love it.
Very cool. We know that we're getting a third Wolverine movie, which is very exciting. And I know you've written a Wolverine, modern day classic, Old Man Logan.
Yeah.
So
I'm saying it's a classic. That's right.
So is that something that you'd like to see be the final Wolverine movie?
Well, obviously I know what the final one's going to be. I can't say, but Hugh, I can just say what Hugh Jackman said. Hugh Jackman walked out on stage at Comic-Con a few months back, and he said, "I've got 3 words for you, Old Man Logan," and everybody went crazy and everything. So fingers crossed. What would be nice actually is Hugh Jackman playing an old Wolverine, and he wouldn't have to go on that diet. That Wolverine diet. He goes on, but he eats chickens. Right? He eats 5 chickens every day and everything. He can just slob out a little bit.
Yeah. Does Old Man Logan even work in a universe without the greater Marvel universe?
Totally. Yeah.
Because there's so many characters Red Skull and Hawkeye, and they're not allowed to be in a Fox movie because they're owned
They
by
weren't
other
important
studios.
to the story. I mean, the way I worked that thing is I actually structured it. I sort of broke it down mechanically, and sort of figured out, going from this part of America to that part of America and what they would encounter on the way. And then I added in the adversaries later. So Wolverine doing the road movie is the important thing there, and he has a friend with him. But that friend could be Cyclops, and he could be blind by the fact that his ruby quartz visor's broken and he has to keep his eyes closed the whole time and everything, but still insists on driving the car that they're crossing America with. So there's loads of stuff. Instead of the Hulk, you could have the Blob or something. I mean, honestly, the continuity stuff is the most boring side of it, I mean? And I kind of like it, keeping it within the X-Men universe a little too, because comic fans are different from the mainstream world. I know this stuff backwards because I've lived my whole life loving this stuff, right? But most people don't know all this minutiae and everything. So I think keeping it simplified and keeping it maybe generally X-Men universe is maybe a smarter thing to do cinematically anyway.
I just got this image of Wolverine like busting out of the Blob, and I'm like really disgusted. One more question for you is that another comic book that you wrote is becoming a movie is Marvel like Civil War.
I totally forgot about that actually.
But that one, again, without the greater Marvel universe, like one of the parts that always gets me like a little teary-eyed is the letter from Mr. Fantastic, or to Mr. Fantastic from Invisible Woman when she leaves, but something like that's not going to be a part of it. Do you think they'll be able to faithfully adapt your story?
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, the important thing there really is the Superhero Registration Act. Essentially, it's nothing to do with secret identities. Weirdly, people get really hung up in the whole secret identity thing, but when I was writing that book, I was thinking about having the superheroes having to expose their identities as they all, get brought under government legislation. And then I said to Marvel, like, who's got a secret identity? And they said, no one. There's basically Spider-Man. Like, everybody, even Daredevil, had given up his secret identity at this point. And I was like, all right. So I made it about something else. And what it's about is that Iron Man feels that anybody who's walking around with a nuclear reactor on their back or whatever, like all these superheroes that's out there, should be under government control of some kind. They should be maybe working for the government in the same way cops work for local government, And it's sensible when you think about it. It totally makes sense. You have a license, you make sure this guy's okay, he doesn't have a criminal record and all this kind of stuff, And it's sensible, but Captain America's against it because, he comes from a simpler time and he feels superheroes should be autonomous and not be involved in politics and everything. So it's an ideological argument between the two. And that's all that matters. That's all Civil War is. It's Iron Man versus Captain America, and they're both right. They're both good guys, because the minute you demonize one of them, then the story loses its power, I think. I think that you've got to like both of these guys. They're both correct. And that's why guys we like go to either side of them too. I think if you have too many characters, it'd be really confusing. For that same reason, like comic fans will get it, but the regular viewers will be like, they can handle maybe 8 characters, 10 characters on screen. Like Avengers 2 almost had that problem where there was so many characters, it was hard to keep up. So if you have 30 characters fighting, people are going to be lost.
Well, it's funny that you say it's not really about the secret identity,
Not
because
at all,
even though that's when I think of Civil War, that's like the biggest moment for me was when Spider-Man took his mask off.
Yeah.
Although he did play a very small role.
Tiny, yeah. People remember that just because it was such a good stunt.
Yeah, it was.
But really,
it's
I mean, it's a 7-issue series, which is 150 pages or something, and Spider-Man appears on it for 3 pages, one of which is a splash. So it's such a tiny part of it, and to be honest, it was just a way of boosting up our sales. Because we were just sitting there thinking, right, what can we do with Spider-Man for 3 pages, and that worked.
Okay, very cool. Well, Mark, thank you so much for the interview.
Thanks for having me. And, thanks for the free Sprite.
No problem. Well, or could it be 7-Up? We don't know. But yeah, so Jupiter's Legacy, Jupiter's Circle is now out in trade paperback. Chrononauts is already out there. You can go get it, go buy it up, so you can know and be on the know. So they become movies. You can be like, oh, I knew that back when it was a comic book. I heard about it.
Scoff at people who just find out about it. Get in now.
Yeah, get
Plus,
it now.
I mean, trust me, right? I wouldn't lie. It's really good.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed them. Hey, you have my seal of approval. Thanks again, Mark. And for all things Mark, all things Millar World, keep it right here on IGN.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.